Nobody must declare tomorrow. No. If that happens, people will be provoking us because we know what we are talking about. We are not guessing. We know. And why should they write to count? And I'm hoping whoever is responsible is hearing what we are saying. Don't start trouble when there is no trouble.
What is our interpretation on the comments? Our view is on the statement that we have done to say anybody who threatens the security or the stability of the country, anybody who wants to undermine the constitutional order of the country, irrespective of who they are or who they were, the law enforcement will have to deal with them. And that's where we end. We don't have to comment or give a running commentary on the comments and the views or interpretation of what one person says or what the other says. The bottom line is that there is a law, and the law provides for dispute raising mechanism, including objections, and they are governed by the electoral law. If that is undermined, the law enforcement agencies will have to come into force. So we don't have to give running commentary on people's comments. We don't have to give an interpretation on people's views and comments. We'll have to out of elections. All political parties signed a code of conduct. That code of conduct prescribes how the political parties must conduct themselves. And therefore, I do not know why would you want a special engagement with anyone else when all parties have signed the code of conduct. So the violation of the code of conduct will then be enforced, because that's what all political parties agreed to before we enter this phase of the elections. And you talk about the July unrest and why you need an assurance. There was a threat of a shutdown in March or February 2020, March 2023, and there was no shutdown. But also there was a threat that the elections will not take place, and the elections took place peacefully. Yes, there were instances of flare-ups. In fact, on the day of the elections, the 29th, the main day, there was no flare-ups there were not flare-ups to talk about. Major flare-ups took place before the elections, before the actual day. So if you don't trust, if those efforts and that delivery by law enforcement agencies have not assured you of the capability of the law enforcement to deliver the safety of South Africans, I do not know what more you want us to do, but the law enforcement agencies led by Net Joins have proven to this country that they have the capacity, they can respond, and they can address the matters. We have not said there will not be flare-ups, but we have said when those flare-ups, when we did the pre-election briefing, when those flare-ups take place, they will be dealt with. And I'll leave the other issues and the comments to my colleagues, the ministers, in particular the ministers of police and the ministers of defense. And in terms of whether somebody will follow up, that's why law enforcement is there, to make sure that all incidences that violate the law are followed up. Minister of Police?
MK? No, we have not directly engaged with MK party. We have, before the elections, called for calm. We have also asked people not to do that which is not legal in this country. We had also indicated that we would not tolerate anybody breaching or tarnishing the name of South Africa thus far, because in the past elections, we have always behaved according to our constitution. So we did not go out of our way to speak to MK party. We are appealing to all parties, to all individuals in South Africa. We all have the same rights under the constitution of this country, not only to exercise that constitution, but to respect everybody else's right to exercise their own. So we are hoping that our plea to all parties involved will be heard by everybody involved. Those who have seen and those who have not seen will equally be affected by the same. So we do not think that we want to have a conversation across or with one individual party. We are appealing to South Africans to respect the laws of South Africa.
The MK party, whatever their briefing was saying, they were raising process in terms of that are governed and regulated by the Electoral Act of South Africa. So there is no point of net joints or the security cluster ministers engaging with MK Party. The MK Party must then follow the provisions of the Electoral Act so that they can raise their disputes in line with what the Act provides for. If there's any engagement, that's the engagement between the MK Party and the IEC in terms of the processes set out by the IEC. And we're saying all political parties have signed the Code of Conduct, which prescribes how we must conduct ourselves as political parties, how we must conduct ourselves in terms of speech. It also says how we must raise our grievances, that Code of Conduct. And that is what must be applied. And I think that closes the matter. Because if you engage with Party X, you'll also have to go and engage with Party Y. Because you may find that there are Party Y, as indicated by the IEC, there were parties that raised objections. There were 6 parties that have raised objections, and if you go to the Western Cape, there was also a number of parties that raised objections. Is the net joints or the security cluster going to engage with those parties as well? No. We have to treat everybody in accordance with the provisions of the law. There's nobody above the law, and there's no peacetime hero. We must be clear about that part. And that's the end of it. So we're saying uphold the Code of Conduct, follow the Electoral Act dispute raising mechanisms, and that will be all. But if you threaten, or if anybody attempts to threaten the stability of the Republic and incite violence, the law will have to take its course and will respond to any incidents. And those are the incidences. And I think in terms of detail, if everybody requires the detail, I think the net joints will then give the direct details in terms of the breakdown, unless, Commissioner, you are ready to give the granularity of detail in terms of breakdown per province. Are you ready? And then we'll get the Minister of Police to speak before we conclude.
Well, Minister, you have said it in a very explicit and straight way, but I can add that policing is prescribed by the Constitution in the Republic of South Africa, and it does instruct what to do. Section 203 says our job is to protect, to combat, to investigate, to uphold the law and enforce it. There is no sign that's written and negotiate any criminality and any statement. Our job is to enforce the law if you get out of the way, and you are not about to deviate from doing so. That's what we are saying here, that anybody has a right in South Africa. The Constitution says so. South Africans have a right to march, to protest, even that is prescribed, not armed, not calling the war, not making head and threat against human beings and property. If you deviate from that, we are there to uphold the law and enforce it. That is the job of this cluster and the operators under the net joints. We hope, as the Minister of Defense has said, we don't reach there. But if we reach there, we have a job prescribed by the Constitution and is legislated what we must do, and that shall be done.